What's going on, everyone? Vince the Lawn Engineer here. If you've been following along, we have been going through an entire lawn renovation. It's been a couple weeks. This video is going to recap everything we did to show you how we went from this to this. So stay tuned. If you're going through a lawn renovation right now, I'd like to know in the comments down below, how are things going for you? Do you have any questions? Anything I can help you with, let me know. Drop a comment. I'd be happy to try and help you out. Just let me know what type of grass you have and where you're located. And real quick, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you for joining. We teach everything you need to know about lawn care and helping you achieve that perfect lawn. So would appreciate it if you smash that like button and consider subscribing. So in this video, we are recapping everything we did to get to this point in our lawn care renovation. If you are interested in learning more and understanding all the details of everything that we did every step of the way, I will leave a link down below to the playlist we created detailing every step through a few videos on everything we did here. So make sure you go check that out. So before doing a renovation like this, it's a great idea to prepare your site. We talked about that in the lawn care guide when you're trying to plan for a lawn renovation. So we actually had to grind some stumps. So I went out and rented a stump grinder, ground the stumps down and everything like that, and prepared the site basically to be ready for this renovation. The very first thing we did here was killed the lawn. We used the glyphosate. Basically, I used two products. One product was called Roundup Quick Pro, which contained glyphosate and diquat dibromide. Then we experienced a little green up of a few things and talked about the use of diquat dibromide, and I decided to do a second application. We used just generic Roundup. I used the stuff called like high yield. It's like 41% glyphosate, and that ended up killing the rest of all the greening up that we had going on in the yard. Then we waited a few days. We waited about a week, and then the next thing we did was scalped the lawn and dethatched everything. I did end up bringing some topsoil in. I'll talk about that in a minute, but the reason for scalping and dethatching, especially if you're not bringing in topsoil or any other types of materials to level things out, is to really get good seed to soil contact on your existing ground. So scalping out the old lawn and dethatching to remove the thatch layers and exposing that bare soil dirt layer is important for that seed to soil contact. And then we ended up bringing in a bunch of dirt. A part of it was for filling in this area over here that we had removed the stumps from to get that back up to grade. And that's part of the reason why we needed a total of 14 yards. I actually brought in an additional 2 yards of fill dirt just to fill that area, but 14 yards of screened topsoil to level out and try to smooth things out as best we can with the tools we had on hand. Level out this area. I think it did a pretty good job. It's a way better than it was before the renovation, so I'm super happy about that. This looks great. Then we were ready to put down our seed. We spread here. It was perennial ryegrass at a rate of 7 pounds per 1,000 square feet, and then lightly raked it in, followed shortly after that with rolling the seed into the soil. Now, rolling the seed I thought was actually critical to help mainly with preventing erosion during light to medium rain events. And we had a few rain events here and very minimal washout. We did have a little bit of washout and I had to reseed a few areas, but rolling that seed in I think helped tremendously. It's not going to completely bury the seed, it just lightly presses it into the soil, giving you really great seed to soil contact and really keeping that seed in place, protecting you from those light to medium rain events. And that's going to basically set us up to put the Tenacity over the existing soil here. Tenacity is a great herbicide that acts as a pre and a post emergent, but its pre-emergent control allows for grass seed to germinate, specifically cool season grass types. There are restrictions on using it in warm season lawns, so make sure you read the label if you're deciding to use Tenacity. We also put down a biostimulant. I opted to go with Simple Lawn Solution Soil Hume. I like those products because they help chelate the nutrients that are in the soil, making them readily available for plant uptake. And I have seen great results using them, so I thought I would just get started with that process and incorporating those types of materials into the soil. It's something that I like to do every 45 days or so, so that'll just become part of the lawn care regimen here going forward. And then the next thing we did was spread some starter fertilizer. I decided to go with the Scott starter fertilizer, built for seeding. This stuff contains mesotrione in it, which is the same stuff as Tenacity. So yes, we were double dipping. I explained that in some of my previous videos. So if you want to learn more about that, please go and check those videos out. But after we put the starter fertilizer down, then it was time to put the peat moss down. We put down 7 bags of peat moss over this area, which is just under 3,000 square feet. We use the Lansey compost and peat moss spreader to spread everything out nice and evenly. It does a great job of doing that with minimal dust, minimal mess. I consider it actually a lifesaver because it sucks spreading peat moss by hand. So if you're going to do something like this, I highly recommend getting a spreader like that. And the thing that peat moss does that I really like about it is it holds 10 times its weight in water and is a great visual indicator between dry peat moss and wet peat moss to let you know when you need to water. So, and on that topic of watering, because that's going to be the next step, you want to water until it's just moist. Just don't water till it's soaked. You do not want to saturate the seed or create runoff, because once you create runoff, you're going to start channeling and creating, you know, basically a little bit of erosion in some spots. But you don't want to drown the seed either. You just want to keep it moist. You want to keep it moist through the entire germination process, and you want to keep that going until you start seeing the seed sprout, and then continue to keep watering it until you start to see that establishment before you start backing off. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in this video, but that is absolutely critical. This will not work if you don't water. So the peat moss really helps with keeping things moist, holding that water, holding on to that water for a really long time, and really helping you establish this lawn. Another quick thing on peat moss is if you are going to do it, make sure you do put down a thin layer of it. You don't want it to go down too thick. You only need about 1/8 inch or so of thickness over top, just barely covering the seed. And that's another thing I like about the Lansey compost and peat moss spreader, is it puts it down evenly and very thinly and uniform across the entire lawn. If you do spread it by hand, you're going to have some heavy spots, you're going to have some thin spots, and you're going to see that and how it reflects on how your lawn comes in. Those heavier spots that you put it down, and it's going to take a while before you see any sprouts come out of that. It's also not really good to have a real thick peat moss layer like that. So I've seen a lot of people have issues with their lawns with really thick peat moss layers. So just make sure you put it down super thin. We're not looking for like inch thickness or even 1/2 inch, just a real nice, like nice thin 1/8 of an inch thickness over the entire lawn, almost just like powder sugar, if you will, over the lawn. So really great tips there. And then we wait. We patiently wait for everything to germinate and keep up with any washouts as rain events occur. Tiptoeing your way through the lawn to maybe sprinkle seed in a few spots if you need to, if things are coming in thinly. And then after you wait, this is basically what you end up with. So this right here was 2 weeks and 2 days after seeding. It is perennial ryegrass. You will get fast results like that with perennial ryegrass. Other grass types do take longer to establish. This is now entering what I call the tillering stage. So it's starting to thicken up here and tiller from the bottom. So multiple shoots kind of tillering and spreading out from the very bottom of the grass plant. That's going to help really thicken things up here over time. All right, so the next thing we want to talk about is when can you mow a new lawn? Haven't done a video on that, so this is the first time we're talking about it here. For perennial ryegrass, I like to mow it just before the grass starts to flop over on itself. And I think that that's a pretty good general rule of thumb for any grass type. This baby grass right here is really fine, and when it starts to fold over on itself, it can become nasty and start to form disease, and it just really doesn't look good. It becomes slimy. So I really like to start mowing it before it flops over. For us here, that was at about like 2.5 inches before it started to curl over at the top and start to flop over on itself. The first mow we did here was actually like 3 or 4 days ago, about a week and a half after seeding. We had about 2 inches of growth. So just to give you some perspective, I mean, perennial ryegrass grows insanely fast, so we were able to do that. And I used a reel mower like you see here. This mower right here is great at giving you a really good clean cut. The reel to bed knife act like scissors and really do a great job of cutting the grass, not lifting it up, not creating suction or pulling the grass out of the ground. And it's very lightweight. So when you get to like a corner or get to the end of the yard, I just pick it up, turn it around, place it back down, and then continue with mowing without creating any ruts during my turns or anything like that. It's the gentlest way to mow a lawn for sure. Now, obviously, as you can see behind me here, there are some clear and distinct lawn stripes in the lawn. And that's because yesterday, which was 2 weeks and 1 day after seeding, I decided to mow with the Toro 60 volt max here with the striping kit on it. And I don't necessarily recommend doing that. I did think that it was a little bit too young. However, I just couldn't help myself. And it is really hard to resist, you know, putting some really nice lawn stripes in such a young lawn like this, because it does have quite a wow factor when you do it. So I did it. But it looks great. I'm not expecting any issues with any of this. I was as gentle as possible using the battery mower, which is lightweight on its own. I really didn't go all the way to the end where the fence is, so I was able to make nice smooth turns at those corners and ends. And you know, this mower did a pretty good job. And I actually didn't cut with this. The mower height is set so high that it actually didn't do any cutting. So really just a light lift of suction and then light pressing down of the roller to get these lawn stripes, and it looks pretty good. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is watering, more specifically when to stop that daily watering to get everything to germinate and start the more infrequent deep watering. So here we are just over 2 weeks after seeding bare dirt, and the lawn is looking pretty good. It's starting to thicken up. And that's a great time to start dialing back on the watering. You want a day or two in between. I start out at a day of just keeping things dry and then a day of watering. So alternating every other day until I feel like it's more established, and I'll switch to like every 2 days and start more of that more deep and infrequent watering. I actually did a video on watering a while back. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. Make sure you go check that out. Explains everything you could do to dial in your sprinklers, and make sure you're focusing on deep and infrequent watering. You want the grass roots to basically search for water, right? So that'll help drive them deeper into the soil at this stage and really promote deeper roots and overall healthier turf. And there you have it. I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for joining.